If you clicked on this video, it's probably for two reasons. One, it's to ask where the heck I've been, or two, there's weather coming up. Well, I won't be able to answer the first one until next week, but I'll answer where the weather's coming from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for February 13th, 2025. Now, folks that may be new probably just thought, man, that's a lot of nerd stuff that I'm about to hear. Why should I pay attention to this? Trust me when I say, we got something big on the horizon. Now, it may not look like it on your screen right now, but this is the outlook for Thursday the 13th to be able to kind of show you as to what is generally going on right now. We have a little bit of weather, some severe weather that is possible across portions of California, but there really isn't anything expected right now, and that is not expected to change tomorrow either. This is Friday. We have some general areas of thunderstorms. We don't actually see our activity until we get into Saturday. This is Saturday, February 15th, where we do have multiple levels of severe weather expected, and it is very possible that we could be seeing an outbreak of severe weather. Notice that we have levels expanding all the way up from 1 to 3 over into portions of the deep south as well as into the southeast, with an enhanced risk of severe weather across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and extreme eastern Texas. And keep in mind, some of these risks could include flash flooding, strong damaging winds, maybe some spotty hail, as well as a few tornadoes. But let's go into what happens before then and what's kind of happening right now, the lead up all the way into this event. We have two storms right now. We have the first storm that went on through that created our severe weather the other night. This is creating some heavy snow for portions of southeastern Canada, and as well as some severe storms across portions of the southeast. That's going to be moving off of the coast here relatively shortly. And meanwhile, there is our new system that is starting to move on through. We have portions of the western United States that is going to be seeing some heavy snow in the higher elevations, maybe even further off into the east, into portions of the Cascades. And then we also have some very heavy amounts of rain that is from portions of Oregon all the way down into California. I'm sure a lot of you remember the wildfires that have occurred in those areas. And so this is definitely some good rain to try and dampen that ground, try and prevent some future fires. But one thing about the storms, it's not just going to sit still. It's going to start to move off to the east a little bit more. It's going to create some snow across portions of the Great Lakes heading into portions of Friday night into Saturday morning. And this is where things start to kind of come together more and more as you start to see a big blob of green over here. We have some pretty sustained green. That is some rain that is going to be developing across a lot of these areas, especially within this confined corridor here, ranging from portions of Texas all the way into the Appalachians. So definitely something to watch out for in the flooding risk. And on the southern portion of it, so this leading edge of this bottom part of the storm, this is where you could probably see some more severe weather that could try and develop. It's a lot warmer into those areas, and it makes it a little bit more frequent for severe weather. But then as soon as this system begins to develop, this is a whole whammy here. I'm talking bunch of severe storms down in the south, a lot of winter weather up north with some freezing rain possible across portions near I-90. That is definitely going to be something to watch out for as that continues to move on through past the weekend into Monday. And then we start to see a little bit of a new storm that starts to develop. Starts to go from Sunday all the way into Monday. A lot of rain here along the coastline, but then eventually could turn into some snow across portions here, Montana, Idaho, down into Wyoming. And so definitely some snow, some more activity that could try and develop within this second system. And as this new system begins to develop at the beginning of next week, we can start to see our next storm fully materialize as it goes through the Gulf Coast all the way into the southeast. We can start to see some snow get as far south as Arkansas potentially. We'll have to see if the models continue to show that trend. We're starting to get into the outer range of realistic activity here, if you will, but definitely something to watch out for. It seems that there is a signal for some strong weather that could occur down here into portions of the southern plains and down into the southeast. One thing to note with some of these snow totals, as I said, very heavy amounts of snow over into portions of eastern Canada. We can also see a lot of snow that is starting to develop on even just the western half of the country. You can just see all the snow, especially in the higher elevations in the Sierras. And then we can start to see as that starts to shift on through towards Saturday morning, we're starting to see a bit more snow that could potentially try to move off into this area. Keep in mind, the actual accumulation on the ground may be a little bit lower than this depending upon where you live, but this is kind of just a rough estimate as to how much snow could be falling from the sky, and we definitely have some of it. I mean, even heading into Sunday night, a good amount of snow over here into portions of upstate New York, heading into southeastern portions of Ontario, as well as portions of New England. So good amount of snow over there. And then our next storm that starts to develop even back behind this. I mean, you have one strong storm on one hand, and then you have another that's just going to start to bring some amounts of snow, not super heavy amounts of snow. Depending upon where you are in the higher elevations, you could see over a foot, maybe into that 2 feet range. But we are starting to get some bits of snow that could try to form out. And then here is our next storm that'll try to develop sometime the beginning of next week into the mid stages of next week, where we could see some good amounts of snow over in the Central Plains, Kansas, Missouri. Definitely something to watch out as that continues to move on through before we start to talk about that in general. I mentioned as well our flooding risk. We have a hefty amount of rain that is going to be developing over here into the southeastern portions of the United States. So something just to be mindful of. Once again, if you see flooded roadways, turn around, don't drown, don't drive into them. A lot of rain as well expected across areas to where it is going to be non-freezing temperatures. A lot of this stuff up here in the Northeast is really kind of snow related. So really just this main area right here is what we're going to want to watch out for. And then as this continues to move on through, we can start to see our next system start to bring in a lot of rain down here in the Southeast. Definitely something to watch out for as we get better resolution with our models. But just for in general speaking right now, once again, the consensus says something might happen heading into next week. And then moving on in general, we have some areas that could see some freezing rain over the next week or two. This is not exactly set in stone. This is just more to just say there's more to it than just snow. There's more to it than just severe weather. Realistically speaking, if you are in an area where there could be freezing rain, it could be in these areas where it's highlighted, it could be even further out, depending upon the day of, as to when you could potentially be seeing any form of ice. Please be careful in those roadways. As I said, could definitely get very slick, definitely could get pretty dangerous out there. And then we can move off now into the general idea of what's happening in our jet stream. As I mentioned, this is what's currently going on right now. A lot of windy conditions in general. I was driving home from my other job, and it was pretty windy. It was blowing my car all over the road. And so, yeah, we definitely have a lot of strong winds in the upper portions of the atmosphere. That's starting to translate down towards the ground as that moves out of our area. Our new system is starting to develop over here. You can see this bowl in the jet stream. This kind of tells us that there is a pretty gnarly trough that's going to try and develop here soon. And you can see that is exactly what happens. Our trough digs down, and on the leading edge of that trough, all right, the leading edge of the trough, that is where you watch for the potential of your strongest activity in regards to severe weather. And so we definitely have that very strong wind shear in general. We can move off over into our moisture. We need a lot of moisture, or at least high humidity, if you will, for thunderstorms to be able to at least be somewhat possible as this moves off through from Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon. Look at that moisture just absolutely surge further north, and you can even see some boundaries begin to develop. We have our cold front that begins to kind of lag a little bit behind. We have our warm front that's out in front. Depending upon where this warm front sets up can determine as to how far north the event can move up to or how far south it can go up to. So this is still something that we're going to try and figure out as we get closer to the event. We'll have a better idea as to where the general area could be as we get into tomorrow's video on Friday night. But we definitely have a open warm sector here for the potential of severe weather to try and form. We have dew points in upwards of 70 degrees. That is very, very moist in a lot of this area. And then, of course, as the overnight activity starts to kick in, stuff starts to push and move on forward towards the east. Now, this is something that I'm going to try and introduce to some of you all. You guys have seen it before, maybe sometimes on my videos, maybe sometimes on my streams, but this is something called the 0 to 6 kilometer bulk shear. This is basically giving us an idea as to whether or not supercells could be favorable in this environment. The big thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is once the colors start to show up in the red, that is where supercells could be possible to be in that area. At least if they were to form, if thunderstorms were to form, they could potentially evolve into supercells. So let's move on through our bulk shear here. For right now, based off the looks of the late morning, the early afternoon, not really as big of a sign for supercells to begin to try and develop or sustain. Maybe somewhere along that warm front it is definitely possible, but once you start to transition into the afternoon and the evening, look at this here, guys. Stuff starts to change from green all the way into the orange and even the reds, and once you start to see that start to shift, that's where you can start to see, hey, it is definitely possible to where we could start to see strong thunderstorms turn into supercells, and those could definitely produce large hail, strong damaging winds, even the chance for some tornadoes. So definitely something to watch for as well. In addition to the wind shear and, of course, the moisture content, we have some energy that is available in this environment for storms to kind of take advantage of. We'll see as to whether or not the energy levels could be higher than expected or lower than expected. That is, of course, something that we'll have to continue to monitor the day of when we stream. But for right now, it definitely looks like we have enough energy. We're talking about 1,200 to 1,500 joules per kilogram of CAPE. That is definitely enough for thunderstorms to be able to do things in this environment. So something to watch out for with that. So as we get to the timings here, the NAM 3 kilometer is not going to be able to kind of show us the whole picture. The one thing about the NAM 3 kilometer is it's a high resolution model, but it doesn't really do a great job at, printing out the thunderstorms and giving us exactly what we need to know. So the general idea here is just, all right, where is the cold front going to be? Where's the warm front going to be? And how far this open warm sector advances. And so that way we can get a general idea as to who could be under the gun and who could not be under the gun. So let's move on through. Let's take a look at the timings here. Our warm front right all the way up from Kentucky into central Arkansas tells me that anywhere north of the Ohio River, you guys are obviously not in this risk. All right, you guys are not going to be touching the severe weather. This is where you can potentially start to see some activity from Memphis down and south of Memphis. You can see below this area of rain, this is where we could potentially see more of your warmer dew points, your higher dew points, especially as we go back over here. You can kind of see your dew points are a little bit higher in some of these areas as well. So definitely something to note. Very, very moist dew points within a lot of this area. And as this continues to move on through, this cold front starts to kind of crash in once we get past the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And our cold front really starts to translate into more of a QLCS style of event to where we have storms embedded within the line. And these storms will be primarily wind and tornado makers, all right? Mainly wind, but you could see some spin-ups within the line. I'm not talking super, super strong tornadoes, but there is definitely the potential for some tornadoes widespread along the line if we were able to get a few supercells there. So it's definitely something to watch out for as it continues to move on through. And the expectation is that all the way through into Sunday morning, this line will continue to advance further and further east. And we could be talking about folks that are over here in portions of Georgia, Carolinas, portions of Alabama, and northern Florida. You guys could be in the path as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. Link will be in the description down below, and I will catch you guys in the next video, which will be tomorrow night. We have daily uploads every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you guys be there and be square. Peace out, everyone.